Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 145 of Speaking from the Heart. And I hope you have your car, truck, RV, whatever vehicle you have packed up, maybe even your suitcase for that matter, to throw on the airplane, because it's time to go on a cross-country exploration through self-improvement. And that's right, we're going to really talk about unconscious bias. You might be asking yourself, how is that even related to driving across country or even enjoying the various sights and sounds of whatever country you live in, Joshua? Well, it's quite simple. If you're driving on the road and you're going to a completely different type of destination that you've ever been to, you might be realizing that there's all kinds of new avenues, new opportunities, new adventures to choose from. But yet, at the same time, there are new people, new perspectives, new cultural norms, new understandings of different varieties of people that have possibly a profoundly different lifestyle than even you, that you have to understand and respect, especially as you're coming to their territory. So we are really going to dig into why sometimes we have this bias of maybe some of the things that we have dealt with in our life, let alone even other people, that we need to get over, and we need to reframe how we can even enjoy some of those various cultural perspectives that will help us multiple times over with that rate of return that we're always looking for. Now, this isn't a business coaching episode. I'm going to try to make this as big and broad as possible because, yes, this topic in itself could easily return dividends on your bottom line if you think about it, because in other cultures, if you don't understand and respect the customs, let alone even the differences from your own country, yeah, you're going to lose that deal that you've been working on for a long time. But at the same time, what if we were able to make new friends, new family members, maybe even new acquaintances that we'd be able to pen pal, maybe even our new girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, all because we were able to take a cross-country adventure learning about the differences in ourselves. I think that we often think of people, especially that are not living our day-to-day lives, as something completely different. We don't really appreciate what they are. We don't appreciate the differences. So that's why it's even important, too, that if you have your motorcycle helmet on or you have goggles on as you are driving because you're protecting your eyelids from all kinds of various ailments that might be happening along the way, I think you might be rose-coloring them from being able to see what other people bring to the table. Which is why I love the fact that we have various modes of transportation. If I want to get there really quickly and I don't really want to appreciate any of the differences, we have airplanes. In some cases, maybe even trains are a better option than even driving your car, your motorcycle, or even an ATV if you really are so inclined. But I hope that your ATV can be registered in the state that you live in, let alone the country you might reside in. Even with all kidding aside, you have to make a profound difference in the way in which you can explore your self-development by understanding the world around you. So let's talk about how you can be able to do that, even at the comfort of your own home. Because, as I've even talked about on various other episodes, social media in itself could be one gateway if you use it appropriately. We've already talked about some people, even myself included, have gone down the rabbit hole of ridiculing and complaining about all kinds of different people, all kinds of different perspectives for that matter, especially when we see other people disagree with us. And I've already shared with you that it's really important to think about that other side, that other coin, that perspective in which you might not always hear about or even see for that matter. Because if you're able to understand that, and you're able to reflect on that, that can make such a big difference, not just in the things that we're talking about today, but also examining how we are able to have personal growth, even professional growth for that matter. But if we look at the multiple forms of modality that are involved with being able to learn and grow in just the aspects that we need to teach ourselves, it can be as easy as talking to somebody else that is completely different from us. Now, I'm not asking you today to go up to a complete stranger, especially if you're driving across country, get into the gas station and go, "Hey, buddy, how's it going?" First off, I don't think you really want to do that because you don't know what they have behind the counter, especially if they think you're some kind of robber, which I'll let you decide what reputable choice they have behind that counter. I'm not even asking you to go up to random people at bars, grocery stores that you stop in, convenience stores, no matter what kind of things that you might do on your road trip, even going to places that are of historical significance, parks, not only things that you find alongside the road. I'm not asking you to go to any of those people and strike up a conversation, unless you're so inclined to, which would be absolutely profound growth outside your comfort zone. No, I'm not asking you to do any of those things. What I'm asking you to do, though, is to take a deep breath as you stop at each place and learn how to have not just that conversation that you choose to have, but to appreciate the sights, the sounds, what makes this aura of energy different from the normal energy that you're usually attuned to. You see, unconscious bias comes from not only the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, but it's because we're unconscious of it, which is why it's called unconscious bias. We are not self-aware of some of those things that are completely different from around us. So if we're able to look at the world differently by just accepting some of the things that are happening around us, that can make such a huge difference in some of the conversations that we need to have. Not just in our own backyards when we're back home after that long trip, but I mean in a national discourse on a variety of different subjects that oftentimes I see America, let alone other countries too, not exactly on the same page. As a matter of fact, it might even help bring unity. It will bring bonding together, especially when we start to have that conversation about peace. Not only understanding what other people have going on in their lives, but how we can help them. I've always been an advocate on this show about the importance of helping others. The best way to do it is to just simply ask them, or just observe where there's a need. A perfect example of this is right in my backyard here in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. There was recently an initiative to help clean up vines that were growing up alongside a brick wall that was part of a significantly historic venue that has been well known and established to have ties to the early founding of the borough of Carlisle. Through some citizen groups and the advocacy that was brought together by social media, along with some local groups and the support of local government, they were able to clean up those vines in no time. Those are the sort of small acts of kindness, let alone the small things that we need to do to help protect our overall value of the community that can help us to achieve some of the best things that we have yet to come. And this is how especially some settlers in America even founded some of the places that we live and enjoy today. The city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, not all that far away from me, was even based on some of those aspects of growing, learning how to cooperate, because it wouldn't have been a vast metropolis that it is today, regardless of what you might think of it, especially with some of the areas that have been suffering from crime and drug abuse. But those two things themselves, that can be cleaned up just by simply going in the backyard and learning a little bit more about it and understanding what are the best ways to make improvements. Instead of simply just showing up thinking you're going to change the world, people are just going to simply laugh at you or, in some cases of Philadelphia, shoot at you, which I really would be afraid of your safety more than anything else. I have to say, regardless of what modality that you might choose to help yourself get to that direction, it's really about understanding what is holding you back from believing that that change can occur. I think that we have to learn how to be able to understand our cultures a lot better by not only participating in avenues such as local government functions, city council meetings, things of that nature, but it's also about learning how we can be a more responsible citizen. One of the more recent things that I've been trying to do over the last few months is to actually work on citizen advocacy, being able to learn a little bit more about how I can be involved, not only in local politics, not only in local government, but also how I can help others become better versions of themselves by just simply participating in more events that would help them get the stronger edge over all kinds of different avenues that they normally are held back in. Being able to learn how to self-develop yourself often means then looking at some of the gaps that we have. We've talked about setting goals, but those goal-setting activities really mean identifying where are some of those areas that we're lacking in. What are the gaps that we're trying to fill so that we are able to understand a little bit better of our surroundings? And even the context of today's episode, talking about putting gas in the car, jet fuel in the plane, putting some sort of resource into it so that we can get a desired outcome or desired output for that matter. Because whether we want to look at it or not, we have to understand that we live in it and we can't ignore it, no matter where you might be in this world. But oftentimes, people choose to ignore it and therefore receive the results that they often don't want to receive. And I know, because I've seen it firsthand with some of you that I have even interacted with outside of this show that have made some amazing contributions to society, which I've even featured on my show about why it's so important to learn and respect what other people have been going through. I know it's very easy for us to be able to stay in our bubble and think that everything is A-okay, especially when we have control over that said bubble and everything that comes in and out of it. But if we're ever going to learn individual progress, it means that we have to take a little bit of a risk. That means sometimes stepping outside your front door and even taking a stroll using your own 2 feet around the neighborhood to see what is actually happening. Because let's face it, you don't need just a motorcycle, ATV, a car, a boat, or jet, whatever mode of transportation that I listed earlier. It all starts with your 2 hands and your 2 feet in order to explore through self-improvement how you can choose to learn and interact with others. If you are afraid, if you are nervous, or even have some anxiety about even doing something like this, consider this. If it wasn't for some of the people before us, our ancestors, that have been able to build and form these types of relationships with each other, let alone even build the coalition of governments that we have, how do you think we're ever going to survive in the future if it wasn't for your participation in that process as well? Now, I'm not talking about voting, and I'm not talking about civil exercise of our ability to speak freely, especially on podcasts like this. No, I'm not talking about any of that. What I am talking about, though, is just learning to appreciate the differences, learning to understand each other, and even getting outside of our own comfort zone when it comes to our own thoughts, our own manifestations of what we truly believe. Because if we change our cultural perspectives of this, I'm saying overall that the value that you and I would both get out of it would be much greater if you and I did it separately. Which is why, I go back to my true tested way of overcoming it. Finding a coach. Now, I get it. And we've talked about this too, that for some people, that is out of reach. That is like buying a private jet when you go and hire a coach. So how do I do this by myself? That is always the age-old question. And as many times as we can get in the car and look at other things around us, get on social media and explore those opportunities, and even just watch the news and then look at alternate sources of news to have a counter-argument to then come up with our own conclusion. What else could I possibly do? Well, as some of my clients have done, and have even embraced for that matter, it's about reading, it's about learning from other authors and other thoughts and theories out there, but it's also about understanding and adapting to the fact that our work is not the byproduct of ourselves. We do not need to just always read. We don't always need to just listen to podcasts. It's about what we are able to add as a voice to that contribution, based on our own theories, our own explanations. Of course, it might be important to understand what has been published out there before you open your mouth, or even write down what you have on a piece of paper, or even scrawl on your notepad or tablet, for that matter, and then send it to the World Wide Web for everyone to consume. All I'm saying to you is to just think. The very basis of liberal thinking is to think, to be able to be critical. And as I've even mentioned on past episodes, my political science professor at Alvernia University had once said, it's really about how you can critically think and argue your point with the points that you come up with that are truly important to carrying that conversation forward. I know that we can be bigoted, we can be racist, we can be not understanding of what other people's thoughts, feelings, perceptions, attitudes, whatever. It can create so many different issues. But you let that create issues. If you continue to live in a bubble, or you don't even think about why those people think the way they do. Do you understand their why? Do you want to explore that why? I'll be honest. There's a vast world out there of knowledge and things that we have not learned yet. And if we're not able to embrace that and to carry that conversation forward, regardless of the modality that might be involved with it, of course we're going to be held back in our personal growth. Of course we're going to be held back in our professional, maybe even business growth. We are going to be held back from our ability to speak freely. But most importantly, above all else, you will continue to have unconscious bias. I challenge you today, even if you've been thinking that you are not good enough to have this type of conversation, try. No matter how hard it might be, just try. Because if you just have some of that dialogue outside of your normal group of individuals that you associate with, and if you can really input yourself into a vast new opportunity or world full of imaginable possibilities and grow a thick skin, knowing that some people are still going to say no, I think then you're going to have a fun time on your trip, and I look forward to you following up with me and letting me know how it went. All the pictures that you took, all the experiences that you had, all the crazy stories that will come from it, but more importantly, just hearing you and how you have evolved from your wonderful road trip, your cross-country exploration, or even your travels across a whole other world can certainly light my day up, and I'm looking forward to you being part of it to help me grow as well. Thanks for listening to episode number 145 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.